everybody. Welcome to the best in true crime podcasting. This is True Crime Tuesday, and we've got a great interview lined up for you today. Now, I want to make a mention. You'll get the entire interview. The only segment of today's show you won't hear is our Dumb Crimes, Stupid Criminals. Why? Because that's under Stitcher Premium. We want to make sure that everybody gets a chance to hear these remarkable interviews of these incredible true crime stories. But for only $5 a month, you can subscribe to Stitcher Premium. That'll give you the entire episode. That includes the entire interview you're about to hear, plus Dumb Crimes, Stupid Criminals, and every episode of Darkness Radio, the best in paranormal podcasting. All 1,000+ episodes commercial free. And if that's still not enough reason for you to want to subscribe, you don't just get True Crime Tuesday and Darkness Radio, which, let's face it, for $5 a month, that's pretty valuable. You get every other show underneath the Stitcher umbrella. That means hundreds of thousands of hours of your favorite type of podcast programming commercial free. Nobody got time for commercials. So if you're interested, then make sure you go subscribe now to Stitcher Premium. Use code word Darkness Radio, all one word, Darkness Radio, for some deep discounts for an entire year's savings. Go do that right now. Take advantage of the special and be able to listen to Darkness Radio, True Crime Tuesday, and all of the other amazing programs across Stitcher's platform. Go subscribe right now. Sit back, relax, and enjoy this episode of True Crime Tuesday. Hello and welcome. Thank you for tuning in to the best in true crime talk radio. This is True Crime Tuesday. I'm your host, Dave Schrader, along with me, Tim Dennis. Tim, Dumb Crime, Stupid Criminals. We got that up a little bit later on in today's program. For those of you that are subscribers, you'll get to hear that. If you're subscribing through Stitcher Premium, that is. If you are just a regular subscriber of Darkness Radio, you get our entire interview completely available right here as you're listening to it. If you're interested in the Dumb Crime, Stupid Criminals aspect of the show, that's available only through the Stitcher Premium app. And that gives you all of our shows commercial free. It also gives you Darkness Radio commercial free and all of the hundreds of thousands of hours of audio that they make available through Stitcher Premium, all the other shows. So your $5 a month goes quite far in this podcast realm of Stitcher Premium. So remember, if you're thinking about signing up for it, you get commercial-free programming. You get the Dumb Crime, Stupid Criminals aspect of True Crime Tuesday. So you can't go wrong. It's a great little investment. If you've got an extra $5 a month you're looking to sling around. Today, Tim, we're being joined by one of our favorite guests. She's back. She has a new book that'll be coming out hopefully right after the beginning of the new year. Put the Money in My Purse, A History of Female Bank Robbers. Judith Yates, our guest. Judith, welcome back.
Hey, guys. Thank you. I love this show.
Thank you. We love having you on here. And, you know, it's interesting because we've talked about female serial killers and female murderers and these crimes of passion. But you forget that there are quite a few female bank robbers and famous bank robbers at that, people that have done this. And, you know, I mean, obviously the first name that comes to mind for most people when you think of this is Bonnie and Clyde. But of course, you know, tied to Clyde Barrow, Bonnie sometimes took that, back seat. But she was just as ruthless, if not even more ruthless than Clyde himself, wasn't she?
Depending on who you talk to. That happens to be one of the cases that I know quite a bit about. And she actually never stepped foot in a bank. She actually never stepped foot in any of the places they robbed. She stayed in the car most of the time. She rarely was the getaway driver because, you know, Clyde could drive like a maniac. And most of the time she either stayed at the no-till motel or in the woods or in the car waiting for the guys to do their thing and come back. So she's maybe picked up a gun once. I know she picked up a gun a second time, and I think she shot herself in the foot or something, or near the foot. Anyway, nonetheless, she actually never robbed a bank, and I cover that in this book.
That's crazy because when you think of Bonnie and Clyde, and the movie certainly made it seem that way with Warren Beatty and, oh my gosh, who played Bonnie?
Faye Dunaway.
Faye Dunaway, that's right, Faye Dunaway. Mm-hmm. They certainly made her seem more integral. And I think, if I remember correctly, she injured her leg in a car accident, right? That's why she had that. Yes. But she, you know, in a lot of the movies, they make it seem as though she was just as bloodthirsty and ruthless. As a matter of fact, I remember one of the scenes that they've kind of conveyed through many different iterations is her killing, I think it was a couple of cops out in the street.
She didn't do that.
No. So she just was hanging out with a bad boy and took half of the credit for the popularity of it all.
Right. And, there hasn't been one movie made that is realistic about their crimes. That is 100% realistic. The one with Faye Dunaway and Beatty, negative. The newest one, I was so excited to see that coming out. I didn't watch the first 10 minutes. Oh, no, The Highwayman is very good. And, I'm not a Costner fan, but I thought he did very well as in his role.
Tim, did you see The Highwayman?
I believe I did. Yeah.
That was Woody Harrelson, Kevin Costner. It's a really interesting take because it's about these two former Texas Rangers that are brought in to try to figure out and corral Bonnie and Clyde. And it is so well done. But here is a movie really essentially about Bonnie and Clyde, and they're like third and fourth kind of characters. They're so kind of sidelined to the two investigators, and I don't even think they show them except for like their feet walking or over their shoulder or something. You never really get to see much of it, but that was a really amazing movie, and I'm not much of a Costner fan myself, Judith, but that one blew me away. It's on Netflix, I believe, so if you haven't had a chance to see it, it's the true story, reportedly the true story of the two highwaymen that were brought in to put together a team, kind of a version of the Untouchables, to stop Bonnie and Clyde in their escapades. And it was a powerful movie, well acted, well written.
It was.
Yeah, beautifully done. But you don't think that was very realistic? Because I thought that was one where they showed Bonnie shooting the people in the street as well.
They did, and that's a common myth. She did not shoot those officers. That was a fellow that was running with them at the time. She was in the car. She had a rabbit. She was delivering a rabbit to her mother for Easter. She named it Sonny Boy. And she was in the car feeding Sonny Boy lettuce and carrots and such when those poor officers pulled up. And the tragedy is the officers never got a chance to pull their guns. And one of them was new to the force. So that is such a tragic story. And to add the impossible to it, And again, I have not seen one movie that is true to their personalities or character, but I did enjoy that movie. I enjoyed it because it was from the law enforcement perspective.
Yeah, they really handled it in a beautiful way and created an interesting story on something that you thought you knew. They give you a different aspect and a different look. Now, as a criminologist, Judith, when you're examining these cases and going back into history to look at this, how do you cut the fact and fiction apart when that's what's believed to be true for so long? How do you end up proving or disproving some of these aspects?
Research, and some more. I was able to talk with some of the women who actually robbed the bank. This book took at least 4 years to write, and I gleaned every piece of research possible, old newspapers, musty court and police records. I interviewed the offenders, interviewed the investigators. I reviewed bank robbery footage, and I found out that when I was explaining to different people, records clerks and people who are president of organizations and nonprofit and such, museums, when I explained to them what I was doing, they loved it. They jumped at the chance to assist me, which really, really helped. I'm so thankful for them. And I even had a few people, email me after the book was turned in to my publisher. I got some more, I got another picture. Howdy, is the book ready? And I thanked them in this book who assisted me. But it was just a lot of research. And that's really, right, what every book should be, what every true crime book should be. Now, not like every bank robber is listed.
Well, that's what I was going to mention. In the case of like Bonnie Parker, though, where so much has been believed about her, written about her, and obviously from your point of view has been erroneous, how do you go back in and especially on a case that's that old, and kind of sift through it and say, oh, well, this never happened at all. She wasn't there. were there actual accounts of this? Did Clyde Barrow and the other, gang members own up to these shootings and these aspects, and the fact that Bonnie was more kind of the, arm candy for Clyde and sitting in the car during these times?
Oh, yeah. Actually, Bonnie's parents and Clyde even told her, turn yourself in. You'll probably get jail time, prison time, but you're going to meet your death if you stick with him, which, of course, she did. And they were kids. They were in their 20s. But I probably know more about the Bonnie and Clyde case and the Patricia Hearst SLA than I should. I have read, written, researched, watched, talked to, interviewed people just on these two cases for years and years. So bottom line is Bonnie Parker herself never robbed a bank. And Clyde, actually, he robbed banks, but not as often as he held up little mom and pop grocery stores, little out of the way places, which, all his people and that part of the community just heralded him as kind of a Robin Hood, rob from the rich. And that's not true. He was robbing people for the most part that were his type of family, just salt of the earth, people trying to make a living.
Well, that was interesting. You've got this guy, this couple that are really kind of treated almost like celebrities of their time. People would stop them, ask for their autographs, want photographs. They protected Bonnie and Clyde. What was going on? Was it just because of the era, the Depression, everything that was going on, that it was just like anybody that kind of gave the middle finger to authority was just popularized by the masses that felt like they had been forgotten about? Was that part of it?
I think that was a lot of it, because we're talking about the Great Depression. We're talking about a huge line between the haves and the have-not. We're talking about people that are living in tents on the side of a river, just outside of Dallas, that are watching people who have food to eat and clothes to wear and places to go, and they are not a part of it. And it was sort of like giving a finger to the quote unquote establishment, which in a way, so did the SLA and so did the robbers of the 60s, 70s. But nonetheless, they were made popular by just myth and legend, and even more so with the public after the original movie with Beatty and Farrow. They become this icon. Even the clothes became fashionable.
But I mean, during the actual time, during the actual time, people were, treating them very respectfully. Of course, they were thought to be cold-blooded killers, so I guess you want to be cautious how you deal with them. But it always astounded me. John Dillinger, kind of the same thing. You had these characters that were larger than life, and even though they were really villains, they were so well respected and liked by the general public. Or is that more kind of Hollywood spin because gangster movies were so popular?
In a way, because you have to, people want an escape. They always want to escape. And especially during this time period, people wanted to escape their poverty, their struggles, just trying to survive day to day. And when you pick up a newspaper and read these headlines about these people, and at the time, law enforcement didn't have half the gun power that Clyde did, half the cars. Law enforcement was usually a guy who was, given a gun and a badge and said, okay, you're the cop in these little towns. So he outran them. Now, these days, there is no way. Maybe a couple 10, 12 years after the fact, probably no way. But Clyde knew automobiles, and he knew how to soup them up. He knew how to make them faster. And there was also a law at the time that if I do something bad in Tennessee and I cross the line into Kentucky, they have to stop at the line, at the state line. So he got away with a lot of things simply because he was clever, but he was also a good driver and a good shot against these, small town officers who, just said, okay, I guess I'm the cop. So, and it was an interesting time. It was an interesting time in history, and they mirrored those times. They mirrored these people And of course, you have I guess you want to call them the haves. And they said, these are cold-blooded criminals. They're killing cops. They must be stopped. Whereas you've got this other population that's always being chased by the cops or, living literally hand to mouth, going, good for you. You made something. And we still have that today, if you think about it.
Oh, yeah, there's definitely still that aspect in our society. How is it, though, that, I could understand in the Wild West and even through the 20s how robbing a bank would be a piece of cake. But even coming up through the 60s, 70s, 80s, 90s, today, people are still robbing banks. How is that a thing, Judith? How is there not, especially when people know there's those dye packs that are put in the bags, there are different things that happen. How do they not, have found a way to just put a stop to banks overall, or bank robberies rather?
Well, you're never going to stop any kind of crime, no matter what you do. And men, I discovered, will most likely rob a bank to feed a habit. Women will rob a bank to feed a habit or because of mental illness or because, again, they're living hand to mouth. And the majority of females who have robbed a bank in the last, say, 10, 20 years, they did it to buy Pampers, milk for the baby, pay their bills. I asked one female who was still imprisoned, and I said, what did you do with the money? And she said, I paid 2 or 3 bills. Because the average take now in a bank robbery is only anywhere between $1,300 and $1,500. So think how fast that would go. If you've got the apartment, you've got a couple of kids, you've got nobody else to support you, you've got all of these bills going on, and that's what they will spend it on. It's
tragic okay. That's the point people break. They realize they feel like they have no other way to go but to rob a bank, and that's becomes a federal offense as well, right? It's not just a stick up. It's not just a robbery, but a federal case because they're dealing with banks. Yeah. Sheesh.
And what really struck me again, and I had no sympathy for these people because you're going up to somebody who's just trying to make a living. You're sticking a gun in their face, or you're telling them you have a gun. And the next thing you know, I think it would scare the hell out of most people. And all you have to do now to rob a bank is walk up with a note and, this is a robbery, and bank personnel are trained how to handle these situations. They get their money and they're out. But your average time to do this, you're usually caught on the 3rd try. And I also noticed with women, they rarely wear disguises.
Really? So, Tim, valuable lesson. You could hold up 2 banks, but stop there because the 3rd one's where you're going to get caught.
Right. Okay. I'll make a note.
You're only going to get about $2,500. What are you going to buy with that? Realistically.
That's around $2,000 more than radio show hosts make. So I think it's
or
almost worth trying. That's crazy. But in back in the 20s, 30s, even in the 1800s, when, you're hearing about the old West stagecoach robberies and the bank robberies and such, they would get away with a pretty penny and sometimes with an entire payroll for a company or organization, right?
Oh, yeah, because, you're talking about gang activity here. And you've got, again, these poor guys that are just trying to make a living running a bank or driving the stagecoach or the train. And here comes 5, 10, 12 armed people pointing guns at you. You're going to do what they say. And especially trains. Trains were easy. All you had to do was blow up the track and jump in the car and stick everybody up if you went that far, or take the money and off you go into the wild, wild west. And who's going to chase you and how are they going to do it?
See, Tim, I'm pretty sure if we ever did Past Life and found out that we were bank robbers together, she makes it sound so matter of fact. You just have to blow up the track, pull it over, reach it. I'm pretty sure we would have blown each other up trying to do the rest of all of that. Yeah, it's bonkers. And I'm out right now. I can't say what state I'm in, but filming a new TV series. And we're hearing about bank robberies and about train robberies. And you hear about just how prevalent this really was. It's kind of crazy that type of activity it was commonplace, really. That had to be insanely hard for, companies and businesses and bank systems to deal with, because I'm sure there wasn't the same type of insurance that there is today in protecting those kind of things.
Right. And it wasn't until 1934 that it actually became a federal crime to rob a national bank, state member bank, Federal Reserve. And again, you have these guys who have the gunpowder, who have the careful planning, who have the group mentality, and they're going to take it and run. Look at Butch Cassidy and Sundance Kid, who ran the Wild Bunch, and nobody ever found out where their hideout was. Now, think of this, though. We're talking about thousands and thousands and thousands of acres of untamed property and land and such. And there were actually two females that, two of the only females that knew where the hideout was for the Wild Bunch. I also discussed them and the myth and legends that kind of go around them. I focused on women who actually walked into the bank, not the women who waited in the cars, not the women who, cashed the money for them, with a few exceptions.
Yes. Sorry about that.
Okay. Okay. I thought I've lost them. Oh no.
No, as I've explained, and I'll apologize again to listeners, I'm in a hotel room because I'm out on location filming. So from time to time, there are raucous noises that occur outside of my bedroom door here. So I mute my microphone while there was a bunch of screaming and yelling going on out in the hall. So I apologize. But
where are you staying?
I wish I could tell you. No, it's just good people just not realizing there's somebody trying to do a radio show from a hotel room. How dare they?
I understand.
But you talked about Bonnie Parker, obviously one of the most famous and notorious non-bank robbing bank robbers, right? But you brought up the name Patty Hearst. And it's interesting to me that, that was such a big part of my childhood, hearing about Patty Hearst and everything that happened. But I don't think any of the generations after me are even aware of Patty Hearst or the story. So would you mind kind of taking us back and giving us kind of an outline of her story and what happened with her and the organization she was, abducted into?
Right. Patricia Hearst, that's a very interesting story. She came from, the Hearst Empire. And she was sort of flotsam. She was marrying a guy that, and she was kind of deciding who she was and where she was. I mean, she's, in her 20s, and you know how you kind of think, okay, who am I and what am I going to do? And meanwhile, off to the side is this little raggedy tag group that's calling themselves the Symbionese Liberation Army, the SLA. And there's not even such a word as Symbionese, but in their ignorance. And they decided, as did many people in the 70s that went this way, they're going to do it for the people. For the people. They're going to make a statement, or they're going to gather enough money to survive for them to make their statement without, even knowing what the I guess you say, poor people wanted. And usually they were very well educated. They were usually white. And they usually, believed in these causes such as anti-Vietnam War, anti-government, because you have to think what's going on politically in the world. So they kidnap Patricia Hearst, and they keep her captive. And then she, quote unquote, joins the Symbionese Liberation Army.
Now, Patty Hearst, or Patricia Hearst, she was from a very famous and wealthy family, the Hearst family, right? And
oh, yeah.
Was that why she was specifically targeted, or did they not realize who they nabbed when they did it?
Oh, no, they had a whole list of people that they were going to scoop up, and she was on that list. And they kidnapped her from her apartment, screaming and kicking in her bathrobe, threw her in the trunk, and took off. And again, kept her captive. And depending on who's telling the story, they said, "Do you want to join us?" And she was scared for her life and said yes. Or it was the Stockholm Syndrome, and she said yes. Or, she was just like, "Hey, let's see what's going on with this part of the world," and said yes, depending on who you talk to. And, how are we ever going to prove that? So she joins the SLA, and altogether they robbed several banks there in the LA area, in the California area. Supposedly, she took up with one of the members, and he and her were together as a couple. So they're, robbing banks. They're doing this and that. Well, two of their main leaders get caught. Of course, everybody except Patricia and two other people die in this heinous fire with a shootout with the cops. And it was just, okay, well, we've got nobody left but the three of us, and they didn't like Patty, and she didn't like them. So they eventually joined up with another group, and they robbed banks. Well, one person is heinously killed. And they were also, there's this one splinter group that's saying, okay, well, we're going to bomb the pigs. We're going to bomb the cops, cop cars, cop stations. And the old SLA members are saying, well, that's not our dig. So they're going back and forth. Patricia learned how to make pipe bombs. One of the guys from the SLA, he didn't know what he was doing, but he's one of those guys that always says he does. So he's making pipe bombs that could have just blown them all to Kingdom Come, because he's guessing. And eventually she is caught in an apartment, tried. Well, of course, it's a huge case, and it's a big financial name. And she gets thrown in prison. Well, all of her friends say, okay, this isn't right. Patricia, was forced to join, blah, blah, blah. And the next thing you know, they're doing a fundraiser, and they're appealing to all the political pals that they have to, get her out of prison, which they do. And eventually her sentence was, what is the name?
But they kind of did time served for her, right? I mean, they just almost kind of forgave it, but acknowledged that she was a part of it and still did it.
Right. Yeah. Please cut all that out where I'm trying to get us. They did time served, and then eventually, her sentence was just kind of wiped off the board. Huh. And now she's showing dogs and, living the life, and she's a grandmother. But it's an interesting story because it always comes down to, did she or didn't she willingly join the group? And the group was made up mostly of women. And very, very feminist women. Here they are following this fellow that's a prison escapee who has no idea what's really going on in the world. As a matter of fact, he couldn't even, he was talking about everything was a coup for the group. Well, he would pronounce it coup. And
the old coup. Yeah.
They're basically stringing together ideologists. Marxism and such, and, hippie thinking and anti-Vietnam, make love, not war. And they're stringing it all together, calling it a group.
Well, can you explain something for our listeners, right? Okay, so we hear this rich girl is kidnapped. She's kind of assimilated into this rebel crowd of ne'er-do-wells who are, not quite as intelligent as they think they are. But after the shootout, after things like that, why is she still part of them? Why didn't she make a break for it and try to escape? Can you, kind of give some insight to the listeners on that and why the courts were so willing to be forgiving to her?
Okay. One, again, who knows? It could be Stockholm Syndrome. It could be fear for her life. It could be she was so into this group and the drama of it and the quote unquote fun of it, and it's absolute freedom. There are no restraints. It just depends on who you talk to. Now, right. Why was she, forgiven? Why was she time served? Money.
Right. Fame and wealth and power helped get her that freedom again.
Oh yeah. The Hearst family was so well connected with politics, obviously. And she was huge news. It was a huge case. Right. And, the power of celebrity, the cult of personality, so to speak.
Do you believe if it was Paul Hearst, a boy, a man that would have been do you think there would have been the same level of forgiveness, or was it again because of the time, the era, this poor woman, what she had to endure with this, and for listeners, Stockholm syndrome, where you kind of start to identify with your captors and almost feel like you become part of them, right?
Oh no, it was a whole different cat. If it would have been
right.
a male,
yeah,
no, yeah, and that's one of the reasons I wrote the book, is because this is such a interesting crime and its dynamics. And what I did with it is I would first discuss the history and the dynamics and the social and the socioeconomic, what was going on with women during this time period. It's broken up into time periods, from the 1800s to modern. Right. And so in the 70s, you think about it, you had women's lib, you had women coming out of the house, going into the workforce, bra burning, anti-Vietnam, the whole 9 yards, drugs and rock and roll. And so you had this whole show going on, per se, in the country. And you were either a dove, or you were a hawk, and off you go. It was just, and people were taking off from home and quitting everything and going cross country to go to, all these different places in the world to find themselves. And it was just such a different time.
We'll take a quick break. Again, the book is called Put the Money in My Purse, A History of Female Bank Robbers. Our guest, Judith A. Yates. We will have a link for that book when it's available. You can find it at darknessradio.com under the store tab. Check out our Amazon storefront. You'll see all of the best in paranormal books, all of the best of true crime books, and some cool gift items and swag that you can pick up year round. It's all right there. Just go to darknessradio.com, click on the store tab. We'll be back with more right after this. All right, Judith, in examining these stories, what is the oldest story that you were able to uncover? From what year did you find a female bank robber?
Okay, well, the first time a female robbed a bank that was recorded was 1897. Her name was Cora Hart. And I tried to keep the book focused on women who actually walked into the bank and held up a weapon or, brandished a note. But with Cora Hart, it was the first recorded, and I thought her story was very interesting, so I included that.
Well, give us some background on the story, please.
Okay, well, Cora Hart was born in this hard scrabble family, and again, you have to think of the times, the 1800s, and she was very enamored with the outlaws that were, and of course, again, they were, they made the press, they were the news, they were the bad boys. And so Cora grew up in this hard scrabble life on the prairie. She married, and here they are living hand to mouth, trying to eke out a living from the soil. And a friend says, well, you know where the big money is, and we could just, leave this dirt farm and do whatever we wanted. Well, they all get together with her brother and her husband and Cora. And as they're planning it, her husband Bud is sort of, well, I don't know. So they finally get it together. They're ready to ride. And Bud says, I'm not going with you. And Cora tells him, I will not live with a damn coward. Well, she chops her hair off. She puts men's clothes on, which at the time was very taboo, and off they go. And they rob this bank. She stays outside holding onto the horses. They trusted her for that. They ride off into the sunset, and the next thing you know, here comes a posse. At one point, they're shooting it out, shooting one another and into the brush and scrub to get away. She even saves another fellow's life. And they get caught because, as usual with bank robberies, somebody made a stupid mistake. The fellow who was carrying their map, where they're coming from and where they're going, he drops the map. So there's a posse. Listen, I got stories that people did that were there. I know they're going to make dumb criminals. I know they already have. But nonetheless, so they rob the bank and they get caught at her father's house, which happens a lot. And she stands trial, and she was the newspaper darling because she was a female bank robber who dressed as a man. and the way they physically described her, which is always included, with these newspapers, how unattractive she was, how foul-mouthed. And of course, they just expanded the story. She's a crack shot and she can, ride a horse backwards and shoot your eye out at a mile. I mean, they really pumped her up. And she goes to prison, comes out, and as far as everybody knows, leads this crime-free life. But she was an interesting character because she was, quite mouthy, and she would, like she told Bud, I'm not going to live with the damn coward. I'm going to do what I want. And then when she was interviewed by the newspapers, and she says, you know what? I would have robbed the whole town if I could have. I would have shot them all up. And she was, kind of a smart ass. And they described her as slovenly, of lowly origin, not at all attractive in any way. And this is where, they say, well, were you scared during the robbery? Because she's a female. And she says, not one damn bit. So she's pretty smart mouth with this press, and they ate it up because she was just, what a woman wasn't supposed to be.
That's, I love when you hear back into these stories and how it shakes the paradigm of what society expected, and the woman being so powerful and strong-willed and doing this. And, you don't realize that just because they're not holding up banks, they were the ones holding families together. They were the ones plowing fields and taking care of their family and working on the side. And, then we look at them and there was this whole concept of women are these gentle little flowers. And really, in many ways, they were much more powerful and strong than the men that were their contemporaries.
In a lot of ways. And they even said in newspapers, her features are coarse and masculine, as are her tastes, which I thought was very interesting because she, is supposedly boozing it up and fist fighting and riding horses and shooting guns. And she did ride horses. She did shoot guns. She lived on the prairie, and it was interesting. They called her the newest of new women, right up to date, fearless, dogged, and desperate, short black hair, and again, dressed like a man. They really, really focused on that.
Crazy. Well, and that was the oldest one you were able to uncover, correct?
Yes.
Now, what is the youngest female bank robber that you were able to find when researching for the book?
Oh, barely a teenager. Barely a teen. And they got away.
They got away with it? So how did they know who it was then?
The bank teller described them, and bank tellers are taught so many interesting things as to, how to describe a robber as far as height, weight, face. And there is some video. It's very scratchy because of the cameras and the quality. But nonetheless, she said that she thought they were maybe 12, 14, 13, somewhere in there. And they walked into the bank. They handed over a badly spelled note, and they left with the money and just literally disappeared.
That's amazing. Well, those were small communities and such, weren't they? How did they not know who these kids were?
Well, there's a big apartment complex down the road from this bank. And story has it that their father or stepfather talked them into doing it. So it's possible they just kind of disappeared into the woodwork of the apartment complex. And the officers even went far enough to go to the local schools and ask for handwriting samples from the girls that matched the description. Still couldn't match it. Of course, the statute of limitations has either run out or is about to run out. So these girls basically got away with it. Now, they did ask two girls who matched descriptions in the apartment complex, and they said, oh, no, we were playing Monopoly. We don't know anything about that. Well, were they playing Monopoly with Monopoly money or, actual dollars? But nonetheless, they never caught these kids.
And now digging through again, you see some of these stories and obviously understand tough times and why people are doing this. were you finding any of these characters to be kind of redeeming in their qualities of why they did this? Was there any of this Robin Hood concept, this romanticized version of why people were stealing? Were they trying to help their community, trying to help others, or was it mostly for selfish reasons?
No, I never advocate for any criminal and why they did what they did, because we all have the choice, and that is just my belief. However, there were some that bothered me in a different way, and one was named Hannah Sabata. She was known as Bank Robber Chick. She robbed the bank, and then she went home, smoked some weed, got on YouTube, and made a video of herself brandishing the money and the weed and the car she stole. She jangled the keys, and she's doing all of this, playing Green Day in the background. It made huge news. She made front pages and the news and all of that about being stupid and, not playing with a full deck. Well, Hannah is severely mentally ill, and she is in prison now. What's interesting is Hannah is a wonderful artist. She draws and paints these strange, interesting pictures, but she's writing a book, which she sent me. But she has such a quirky, different outlook on life. As a researcher, as a female, as a criminologist, I find her to be probably one of the most interesting cases, just because reading what she's writing and listening to her, it's interesting how her mindset is set from both a background and from the mental illness and from the previous drug abuse, which I believe she was self-medicating.
Tragic, huh? Just to see the way these lives unfold. What was we talked about quite a myriad, but who was the oldest bank robber that you were able to locate?
Oh, that's an interesting story. She was in her 80s, and she walked into a bank to withdraw some of her money. She rolled into the bank because she used a walker. And when she got home, she thought they had shorted her. So she went back to the bank and said, hey, you've shorted me. I think it was $200. And so they did their research, and they were like, no, ma'am, you weren't shorted. Well, words were exchanged. And the next thing you know, this 80-something-year-old woman is pulling a gun out of her little pocket thing that she keeps on her wheelchair. On her walker, and is waving this gun around. You going to give me my money? And it was unloaded, but who knew that? Who stops to look? And the bullets were in another pocket. And she was arrested and charged for bank robbery and a string of other offenses. But when the police escorted her out, she's in her walker, giving everyone the stink eye. And it's just an interesting story how, she's thinking, okay, well, they shorted me, I'll show them, without any heed to, oh, and by the way, I'm throwing a gun around in a bank.
Right.
And, there were witnesses, so they're ducking. And one witness even said, okay, well, so what if it was unloaded? We still had a gun pointed at us.
Right, exactly.
She was pissed, she was mad. So it's an interesting story.
Did they go relatively easy on her, again, because of her age and what was going on, or did they throw the book at her?
No, they went easy on her. If you look at things in retrospect, you're not going to get that many years for bank robbery unless you brandish a weapon. And people know that. They know their business. They research this stuff. I had somebody ask me, well, don't you think you're telling people how to rob a bank? No, because everything I'm telling my reader, these guys and these women already know.
Right. It's funny, but you think that, but we do this segment on the show every week called Dumb Crime, Stupid Criminals. And through the years, we've talked about bank robbers who've gone in and they'll wear a mask up to the counter and ask for money. And the person behind the counter goes, I'm sorry, I can't hear you through the mask. And these idiots will take their mask off, ask for the money, put the mask back on, and now their face is on camera. So it's, we think that these criminals sometimes are a little smarter than they are. And oftentimes we're proven that they're just morons who, watched one too many Jesse James movies and decided that this was something they were going to give a shot to. So bizarre. Well, and speaking of bizarre, what were some of the more unusual cases that you cover in the book? And we do have a link so you could pre-order the book, and it's on today's show guide. So if you click that, it'll take you to the page you can pre-order the book. So when it does become available, you'll be the first to get your hands on it.
I found several things interesting. The first recorded bank robbery caught on tape, one of them was a female. And then there's the one-armed bandit brandishing a steak knife, demanding money. And when they told her no, she ran out. The female twins that decided they were going to rob a bank, but they didn't have a license because they weren't old enough, so their mother drove them to the bank. And Etta Place, also known as Etta Pace, who ran with Butch Cassidy and the Sundance Kid, I found her very interesting. So much is known of Butch and Sundance, but not a lot about Etta, and she was right there by their side. It took some time to write, and the stories of these women are so interesting in so many different ways. And again, you see mental illness, you see, desperation, or you see it because I love the man and he said, let's do this. And I said, okay. And there are two former strippers who they were all sitting around, and one of them said, I don't feel like going to work today. And somebody said, me neither. And the man said, you know what we should do? And off they went. So there's just this plethora of different stories.
Well, can I ask you real quickly? I want to get back to the strippers, which sounds horrible saying it out loud. But you mentioned earlier the one woman who went in and said, this is a stick up, and they said no, and she left. Can she still be arrested for just doing that? Even though she didn't get the money and she, nobody was harmed. I don't know what the laws are considering that. Okay. So
yeah,
joking, if I went into the bank, even though I'm not brandishing a weapon, and did my transaction, and she said, is there anything else I can help you with? And I said, yeah, this is a stick up. Even though I'm kind of joking, is that still considered a crime?
Oh yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, bud, we're gonna have to send you commissary money, and someone's gonna have to pay your bill.
You know what though? Three meals and a roof over my head. It doesn't sound like such a bad deal at my age.
Listen, prison and jail food are nasty. I worked at both, and you don't want to eat off those things. And the company is not good. It's a bunch of obnoxious 14-year-olds when people get behind bars.
Judith, I'm the father of 11. I'm pretty sure I'm used to that kind of behavior at home anyway. So I think it's going to be a resort for me at this point. Tim,
yes,
now you know my
surrounded by 1,200 of them.
Yeah, exactly. Then I could just let my inner young Dave back out again and not have to be the bad guy. What a weird set of stories, though. So did the woman get arrested that walked out after being told no, she couldn't have the money?
Oh, the one-armed bandit? Yes. Yeah. She was arrested, and she went without incident, and there was a trial, obviously, and a hearing, and she was adjudicated to drug rehab. So I think, that was probably a lot of it, is just the desperation. I had several cases like that, and a very famous rapper's mother robbed at least 2 banks.
No. All right.
Yep.
Fill us in. And then we'll get back to the strippers.
Okay. Well, I'm going to leave that as a mystery up to my readers, but she robbed several banks because even though he was just a millionaire, she was destitute. There were a lot of issues with him growing up, a lot of discord. And she was sort of just left on her own devices and being financially strapped. She tried to rob a place where they sell, hair goods, the dye and the everything else, the beauty goods. And she didn't get away with that. Well, she gets out of jail and robs another bank. And I believe she was put on parole. Anyway, she robs a second bank, but no disguise, very calmly, and of course caught on video in living color and in black and white, and she gets arrested.
Unbelievable. And this is a famous rapper that everyone would recognize if we said the name?
Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah.
All right. Well, you'll have to get the book to read the full story on that, folks. Now, because I know Tim's very mad at me for stopping the story, let's go back to the stripper heist.
Everybody wants to know about the stripper heist.
Of course, yeah.
No, actually, okay, I'm going to interject here. There was also a guy who was a pimp, and he decided there wasn't much money involved, so he started having his prostitutes rob banks. And pretty soon, people are showing up at his door going, I want to rob a bank. So instead of his little ring of prostitutes, he had a ring of bank robbers. And he was driving them to and from with an ankle bracelet on. He was monitored because he was on parole.
Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Is that how they figured out who it was? Because they realized that this ankle bracelet was always within a block of the crime?
That was part of it. That's part of how he got in trouble.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's crazy.
He was a winner. But yeah, they were knocking on the door saying, hey, I want to rob a bank too, because it was better than working the street. It was more lucrative. And, it became like a hobby, like fun to these girls, these women. And one of them, she was young. It was her first time to do anything, quote unquote, this bad. So one of them says, okay, look, here's the cell phone. I'm going to walk you through it. Okay, walk in. Okay, tell the teller. I mean, she literally walked her through the robbery. And the girl's on the cell phone going, okay, I'm here. What do I say? Okay, hold on. This is a robbery. Give me all your money. Okay, now what do I do? I mean, that's exactly how it ran. But let's go on with strippers. These two little chickadees, they were dancing at a club, and they called them the Barbie Bandits.
All right.
And they were, kind of those pretty blonde girls, and they decided, okay, we're going to.
Did they make a movie about this?
They could make a movie about every woman in this book.
No, I know, but I think there a movie like starring Mina Savari. It was a bunch of pretty little cheerleaders that end up holding up a bank. It sounds like you're kind of detailing that, although they were cheerleaders, not prostitutes. So,
Well, it might have been because, art imitates life and life imitates art. So it could have been drawn from all of the above.
Crazy. All right. So I'm sorry. Go ahead. They decide.
Oh, okay. The strippers.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, they decide it's more lucrative than, dancing on a pole. So they have a guy, and he says, hey, listen, I know a guy that works at this bank, and he's a teller. And if he gets a cut, he'll be part of this. Okay, fine. So the women, of course, the man sends out the women, and they're giggling and looking at themselves in the mirror and talking. And they go to the bank, and they're looking around, and they call the guy. Okay, where are you? He says, you're at the wrong bank. Oh.
Jeez.
So they get back in the car, giggling about how silly they are, and they go and they get on camera robbing the bank, and it's obvious he's part of it, the way he's shelling out the money. And they leave, and they go to the mall, and they get their hair done, and they just, one buys a TV at Walmart. I mean, they're just buying and doing, and they get caught on camera, and of course it goes all over the place, goes national. Do you know these women? And people were calling in saying it's Nicole Richie and Paris Hilton.
Oh my God. And it didn't work.
Well, the manager,
you're still free.
Not much. But the owner of the strip bar calls, and he says, I know those girls, and he gave their stage names. And of course that was, all was said and done. But it's interesting because one of them is supposed to be on the straight and narrow now, but she talks about it so nonchalantly. And you can tell she likes being on camera. And now she's a good girl and knows Jesus and goes to church and stays out of trouble. Well, if you look up her profile on Facebook, she's now working at Hooters and taking, 110 selfies of herself. And it's an interesting story. Now, the other one, she can't stay out of jail. And she was also using drugs quite often. As drugs and that business of stripping and dancing usually go hand in hand. So there she is getting in and out of trouble. And the other girl, she's completely innocent and being a good girl. So it's interesting, though, that it was also nonchalant and cute and funny. to them. But I have a feeling that life to them is cute and funny because they're pretty and they can, Now in their mugshots, not so much.
No.
But,
Well, Tim, just remember when we decide to finally hold up a bank, we just have to look really pretty and we might get off a little easier.
Well, looks like I'm getting caught.
Yeah, certainly worth examining. Crazy stuff. Judith Yates, it's always a pleasure catching up with you. The book, again, we have a link for it in today's program guide. Put the Money in My Purse, A History of Female Bank Robbers. And you could pre-order the book. It'll be out sometime early, hopefully 2022. But go pre-order it now so that you can get your copy and read it along. And this is one of those great books that's you can read a story, set it down, come back to it, read the next story. This is good bathroom material. That's what I refer to it as.
Hey.
No, that's a plus. No, it's a plus. I trust me. I'm working on my own paranormal book where it's short stories about real paranormal experiences, and it's called Stories to Scare the Shit Out of You, the Perfect Bathroom Reader. That's what I like about it. So, no, it's great that these stories are concise and short, see? And it's perfect for that. So thank you very much, Judith, and keep in touch with us as more books come out, and we'd love to hear from you again.
Thank you. Love to hear from you, too. You guys be safe out there.
Will do. Thank you. All right, folks. You heard about it right here. Now you understand that there are ramifications, no matter how pretty and popular you are, for holding up banks. So think twice. And if you do it, make sure to cut Tim and I for 10% apiece. We hope you enjoyed today's program of True Crime Tuesday. And remember, if you'd like the full episode with the Dumb Crime Stupid Criminals aspect, all you have to do is go over and subscribe now for Stitcher Premium. Use code word Darkness Radio, all one word, to get some deep discount savings for your 1-year subscription. And it will give you access to all of our archives from Darkness Radio. There's over 1,000 episodes up and available, and more being added constantly. You get all of the episodes of True Crime Tuesday, and you get all of the other great programs that are part of Stitcher. Hundreds of thousands of hours of programming for $5 a month, commercial free. You can't beat that, so don't even try. Go subscribe now, and remember to use keyword Darkness Radio for those key savings.